Right, welcome everybody. This is our webinar by Flying High English Hub on behalf of the DFE about the DFE's writing framework that was published in July this year. So the writing framework is a non-statutory guidance that articulates common approaches to teaching writing. It's rooted in evidence and existing good practice. So we're going to talk today about the potential that the framework has to make a difference for your schools, what is actually in the writing framework and why it's important, and the key messages that are in there, and very briefly talking about each section. And we'll also address some of the myths that have been circulating about writing and the framework since it was published. So before we jump into the framework, just to highlight for you, here at Flying High English Hub, we do have lots of other training, which is all absolutely free to attend. So currently we have got, if you think about developing phonics and early reading, we've got our Reading Ambition for All programme, which is ensuring that all children, including those with more complex needs, are able to read. That's 5 sessions over the year and they are all face-to-face. We also have a programme for developing early language, which is our Developing Early Language programme. And that's 6 sessions. And again, that's face-to-face over the year. If Reading for Pleasure is on your school improvement plan, we've got lots available for you as well. The Transforming Schools Reading Culture programme is 5 sessions again over the year that are face-to-face, and that is aimed at leaders. We also then have Reading for Pleasure, the Next Chapter, which is a new programme that's been written by Teresa Kremin and her team from the Open University that's virtual. There's 3 sessions in the spring term, and this is only for schools who have already completed the Transforming Schools Reading Culture programme. So if you think you would be eligible for that, please do drop me an email. I've only got about 12 places, so first come, first serve. If you want to get involved in that one, please do let us know. But we do also run the Open University UKLA's teacher reader groups, which again are face-to-face. There's 5 sessions over the year. These are all after school, and these are aimed at class teachers, TAs, librarians, trainee teachers, anybody that wants to build their knowledge of reading for pleasure pedagogy without the leadership element of it. And finally, in terms of Reading for Pleasure, we also offer termly author events. So every term we have a virtual author beamed into your classrooms to try and get your children motivated into reading, and they're always fabulous. And the last one to share with you before I move on to the writing framework is Fluency in Key Stage 2. So a brand new programme that we have to offer for this academic year called Reading Fluency, the Bridge to Comprehension. There are 6 sessions over the year. Again, they're all face-to-face, but it's sort of fantastic content. I've seen all the plans for it already, and it looks like it's going to be really impactful for our Key Stage 2 children that need to develop more fluency in order to be able to comprehend really clearly what they're reading. Everything we offer is absolutely free. So if there is anything there that you think would support your school, please do jump onto our website and book onto anything that you think will be useful to you. Okay, let's jump into it then, the writing framework. Hopefully you've had a chance to have a read through it and a look. If you want to have it up alongside as we go through these slides, that's absolutely fine. But if you haven't read it, I would recommend going and having a good read of it following this. So why was it written? The government's Opportunity Mission aims to remove the barriers and ensure that every child achieves and thrives by providing the best start in life and essential skills. And we know that strong literacy skills are an important foundation for all children and are core to this. Good writing skills unlock future success and are directly linked to the progress in education as well as to potential future earnings. Currently, over a quarter of children leave primary school without meeting the expected standard in writing, which limits their ability to succeed in secondary education. So we're really thinking about making sure we get everything right for these children so that they can access Key Stage 3 when they move to it. But this doesn't only affect their learning in English, but across the curriculum. The graph you can see here shows the attainment at the expected standard has increased in all subjects compared with 2024. However, only reading has returned to the pre-pandemic levels. So we're still not quite up at the levels that we were before COVID hit. So in writing teacher assessment, 72% of pupils met the expected standard this summer in 2025, which is an increase of 0.5 percentage points from last year. but there is a significant decrease in writing attainment compared to those pre-pandemic levels. And in terms of children that are classed as disadvantaged, there's a 19 percentage point gap for them. So the percentage of pupils that are known to be disadvantaged achieving the expected standard at Key Stage 2 is 19 percentage points lower than children that aren't disadvantaged. And we really need to bridge that gap. So that's part of the reason why the framework has been put in place. Again, these are looking at the early learning goals, but research has shown that the gaps in writing emerge early and then persist throughout a child's school career. Children that fall behind at the age of 5 are still likely to be behind when they reach the age of 11. That's why the reception year is so critical. And this graph shows that writing is the early learning goal that's least likely to be met. The government has committed to strong foundations in reading and writing for all children, and the writing framework builds on the reading framework, and this is the first step to ensure that every child develops the writing skills that they need in order to be successful. And this marks the government's longer term plan to help teachers support all pupils to become confident and fluent writers who can share their ideas and find their voice in the classroom and beyond. The writing framework has been published alongside action already underway to drive high and rising standards in literacy, including the National Year of Reading, which starts in January, as well as the ongoing curriculum and assessment review. So, what are the aims of the writing framework? It sets out some of the research underpinning the importance of talk, handwriting and spelling, sentence mastery, the teaching of grammar and punctuation, and feedback. Much like the reading framework, the writing framework includes audits to support schools to evaluate their teaching of writing and identify how you might improve provision if weaknesses are identified. It also highlights the importance of developing language from the early years onwards and encouraging oral composition, particularly while children are still developing their transcription skills. The document explains the importance of the reception year in building the foundations for writing and to make sure that children get off to the best start. It also explains the importance of transcription, so that's handwriting and spelling, through the effective teaching of phonics for spelling and explicit handwriting teaching from the beginning of reception and continuing to build this fluency throughout primary school. The framework explains the importance of supporting pupils to master sentence construction and the importance of grammar as a tool for conveying meaning. It aims to set out an approach to teaching writing effectively and to support schools in motivating pupils to develop a love for writing. So the sections that are in the framework. So we've got the importance of writing and a conceptual model. So the guidance stresses how writing places demands on working memory. We know the actual physical effort of writing and the composition uses an awful lot of our working memory, and we need writers to be able to manage everything consciously, from holding a pen correctly to forming the letters accurately in the right direction and combining them into words. It emphasises how the value of talk and children's mastery of language is as important for writing as it is for reading, and pupils should be taught how to engage in dialogue that enhances their learning and focuses on how motivation is both a driver and an outcome of learning. If children feel like they can write, they're motivated to do so, and if they feel they're successful, they'll want to keep going. It really does make a difference to the writing that pupils produce. Another section is the importance of reception. So the guidance stresses how schools must lay strong foundations for writing from the start, beginning with transcription and oral composition to help children express their ideas clearly. It focuses on keeping things simple and doing them well. It also provides guidance for teachers on making judgments at the early learning goal for writing. Transcription, so handwriting and spelling. So again, the framework emphasises the importance of teaching handwriting regularly, explicitly, precisely, and cumulatively. We know that handwriting instruction should start at the beginning of reception alongside phonics, and it recommends implementing ready-to-write routines and provides guidance on the choice of writing implement for our children, the classroom setup, and adaptations that are needed for people like me that are left-handed. The guidance emphasises the importance of teaching spelling systematically, starting with phonics in reception. Composition. It recommends that the best way to teach pupils to write is by teaching them to master sentences. The framework emphasises the importance of teaching grammar in the context of a sound understanding of reading and writing, and how a broad and deep vocabulary enables pupils to communicate accurately, concisely, and creatively. The guidance stresses the importance of understanding the different phases of the writing process: planning, drafting, revising, editing, and sharing. It recognises how composing orally before writing reduces cognitive demand when we think about the transcription of that sentence. The framework also considers the pupils who need the most support and emphasises the importance of high expectations and the need for teachers and leaders to be ambitious for all pupils. The guidance recommends that teachers provide targeted support for writing during whole class teaching, where possible, to ensure that pupils are included and avoid missing out on other areas of the curriculum. It also notes how pupils may need teaching in smaller incremental steps and more practice so that they can achieve alongside their peers, but that the principle of teaching writing remains the same. Writing across the curriculum. The guidance emphasises the importance of considering how writing lessons can draw upon pupils' broader learning and how other lessons can incorporate writing skills. It explains how writing about what they've learned in other subjects gives pupils a strong knowledge pool from which to draw, so children have got the knowledge they need in order to start composing some sentences. The leadership and management of writing. So again, the guidance emphasises that head teachers are responsible for creating a positive writing culture in their schools, developing an effective, well-sequenced writing curriculum, and ensuring that all classroom teachers, not just the subject leads, but all teachers, are trained to teach writing effectively. It explains that the writing lead should be an expert in the school's writing curriculum and plan a well-sequenced curriculum across the entire primary stage, starting from reception. The guidance stresses that if school leaders decide to have a separate leader for reading and writing, it's vital that these leaders work in a collaborative way. In terms of national assessments, the framework provides a summary of the current primary assessments in English, so the early years foundation stage profile, the phonics screening check, the non-statutory Key Stage 1 assessments, and the Key Stage 2 assessments. There are also a wide range of appendices, which are useful classroom resources and practical examples, including handwriting guidance, sentence structure activities, and a model for structuring writing. And there's also a glossary in there to explain the writing terms. So there are lots of key messages in the framework, and this is the first one, that writing is complex. We know that writing places significant demands on pupils' working memory, so it's vital that we teach it in a sequenced way to manage those demands. The guidance stresses how writing requires pupils to manage everything consciously, from holding the pen correctly to forming the letters legibly and then combining them into words and sentences. Writers also need to think about the content of their writing, its purpose and its audience, and they need to know about the topic they are writing about. So the framework focuses on securing the foundations for writing, developing that automaticity and fluency in spelling and handwriting, as well as spoken language skills, to help pupils manage the demands of composition. So once we've made the transcription more automatic, we're not having to use our working memory to think about that, which means our brain function can focus on the composition element. Key message number 2 is about teaching handwriting and spelling in reception. So we know that teaching handwriting and spelling from the reception year is crucial to ensure that these skills become automatic for children. This frees up their working memory for composition, and we know that handwriting and spelling can be more automatised, and there is a really clear correlation between high quality writing and children who can write fluently. So we know we need to get that fluency right for these children. And I'm sure there are plenty of people sitting watching tonight that have taught Key Stage 2 with children that haven't developed the accurate letter formation And we know once we get further up school, it's really, really hard to fix because children have got those ingrained habits. So it's so important that we get it right early on in reception. So a focus on handwriting is important because the sooner we automatise that, the sooner we can relieve the working memory to focus on composition. So it needs to be taught separately to phonics. We need a handwriting session, and then obviously the spelling comes through the phonics initially. Key message number 3, sentence instruction is essential. We know that all writing is made up of sentences, and knowledge of grammar helps pupils to control the sentences and convey meaning, but it doesn't support their writing fluency when sentence construction is taught in isolation. We need to enable children to build fluency in sentence construction in the context in order to be able to move this into paragraphs and become more fluent. There is a lot of support and ideas about this sentence combining in the appendix, so I would recommend you have a look there if you haven't. But just like with handwriting, grammar instruction needs to be systematic, and we need to be practicing it and applying it into integrated sentence work. Key message number 4 is that spoken language is as important for writing as it is for reading. Pupils should compose orally while they are developing their transcription skills. So we're not waiting until the children have the skills to write full words and sentences before we expect them to compose sentences orally, because this skill will then be valuable when they can transcribe fluently. We know that we learn to speak before we're able to write. And we know that reading and writing have a different syntax. So that oral rehearsal that we do naturally, children need to be taught explicitly how to do. But then we need to then consider what the syntax is that we're writing in and make sure children know how to do that explicitly. This relieves working memory. So if you have already practiced your sentence, then you just need to remember it rather than trying to compose whilst transcribing it. And we know that writing is a collaborative process. Collaborative talk improves children's motivation to write and their writing success. So writing as part of the ideas developing is really important too. Key message number 5 is that quality is more important than length. Pupils need to master the foundations for writing, that handwriting, spelling, sentence construction, before we're asking them to write at length. So nothing in writing happens quickly, and we know that children don't move smoothly or quickly from word to sentence to full text. So we're not trying to push children before they're ready, but really developing those foundational skills first. Further key messages in the framework. The reception year is vital, and we've already touched on this, but we know that the reception year builds the foundations that support children's writing throughout primary school and underpin their future success. Starting the transcription journey early is really important. So we're thinking about the fine motor skills needed to hold a pen, the core position needed to sit properly and have that good posture, the cognition for the formation of the letters. If we can get that automatized as soon as possible, the children can then start to focus on their composition. And at this point, when the children are young, motivation is most vulnerable. So we need to motivate our children to want to write and get that motivation in the reception year. We also need to identify pupils who need additional support. So it's important to identify pupils who need additional support with writing as early as possible, like we would for anything else, but from reception onwards. Teachers can then adapt their teaching and make it accessible for these children. And this includes giving pupils more time and additional practice so that they can make good progress. So we need to be really forensic, just like we are with phonics and other areas of the curriculum, in identifying what is the difficulty for this child, what is it that they are struggling with, and what can we put in place to enable them to make the good progress that they need. Another key message is that we know it will take time to tackle all the challenges in teaching writing. And what schools are advised to do is concentrate initially on high quality teaching of transcription and sentence construction, while gradually developing broader writing skills. Another key message is that we need to avoid focusing too heavily on test preparation. This can limit the development of skills and knowledge and stifle pupils' creativity and their wider writing development. We want to produce children that are good writers, that are motivated to write. So we don't want to stifle their skills. And then leaders must establish the culture and the curriculum. So like with anything, it's the leaders in school that are responsible for establishing that positive writing culture and developing a well-sequenced curriculum, ensuring that all teachers are well trained to teach writing effectively. So what else is in the framework? There's further detail around each of the key messages that we've just touched on. There's a clear explanation of the simple view of writing. There are practical tips and examples of how to apply the things that are mentioned. There are printable audits, and I would really recommend that you have a look at those. They're really succinct and useful, and are a good way to start in looking at what is it that we need to work on, what are our strengths, what are our areas for development. So using the audits for the different areas is really recommended. But there are also really useful appendices which got good steps, top tips and examples. So if you're somebody like me that normally doesn't get through the appendix, I would really recommend that you do have a good read of those. And there are also signposts for further areas of support, so further reading that you can do around the areas that are mentioned. So in terms of next steps for schools, what the DfE are recommending is that you use this academic year to focus on becoming familiar with the framework guidance and use the audit tools to help evaluate your current practice and identify areas where there may be weaknesses for development. And then think about how we're going to implement those areas and how we're going to put things in place to develop those weaknesses into next year. So in terms of next steps for leaders, and there are next steps for teachers. So the writing framework is the DfE's first step in the longer term strategy to support schools in improving writing, teaching and attainment. We know it will take time for schools to plan and implement changes that may be needed to have a long-term impact. So in terms of leaders, we need to start thinking about developing an effective writing curriculum action plan. So if you haven't got one already in place, think about how you're going to address that. And we know this process will take time. So consider creating a multi-year plan that addresses the necessary changes across the whole school and prioritises them accordingly. Given the importance of securing automaticity with transcription and the government's plan for change ambition for more children than ever to reach a good level of development at the end of reception by 2028, schools may choose to prioritise the reception year, particularly early literacy skills like writing. It may also be sensible to secure the high quality teaching in transcription first, while developing plans for the broader elements of writing, particularly teaching sentences. Teachers should use the audits to evaluate their current classroom practice and use the guidance, particularly the appendices, to support their teaching practice. But again, as you can see on the screen, first point for everybody, if you haven't already, have a read of the framework. Make sure all leaders and classroom teachers have seen that. In terms of myths, there have been quite a few that have been brought about since the framework was published in July. The first one being this, that the writing framework will be updated in October was the first myth. It won't. It won't be updated in October. After the final curriculum and assessment review report is published and a revised national curriculum is drafted, then the DfE will publish an updated version of this framework to align with the new programme of study. An updated version will not be available this academic year, so nothing will be done until the other reviews have been completed. And myth number 2 is that the writing framework guidance says children should be writing at tables all day, meaning there is no time to play because of the writing. This guidance explains the importance of keeping things simple in reception and doing things well. This means explicitly and systematically teaching handwriting and phonics for spelling from the start of reception and ensuring plenty of time for children to practice. However, the writing framework does not banish play in reception. We know it's still really important to develop other skills. Okay, in terms of Ofsted, securing strong foundations is a focus of all inspections with primary age pupils. So what do we mean by strong foundations? This is the foundational knowledge that pupils need to access the curriculum. Ofsted will focus on how all children are equipped with the knowledge they need to make progress in reception through Key Stage 1 and beyond. Inspectors will consider how the school supports pupils who are in the early stages of communication and language, word reading, handwriting, spelling, and number facts, including older pupils whose development is not at their age-appropriate level, making sure that these foundations are prioritised so that pupils can access the curriculum. You may recall Ofsted's research in reception in Key Stage 1, Strong Foundations in the First Years of School, which was released last October. This research provides more detail about what works well for children in these phases. Ofsted's focus on securing strong foundations is important because it has significant impact on a child's later success and life chances, especially for the most disadvantaged and vulnerable children. Transcription is obviously an important part of that focus. Here are some of the evidence gathering prompts from the school's toolkit which relate to pupils' transcription knowledge and fluency. Inspectors will consider the extent to which the curriculum prioritises accurate and fluent word reading, spelling, handwriting and mathematics, as well as how leaders quickly deal with any gaps in pupils' knowledge. In reception in Key Stage 1, inspectors will evaluate the quality of interactions and how staff develop pupils' vocabulary and spoken language. There is also specific reference to children developing a comfortable pencil grip in reception. They will also consider this for pupils at the early stages of learning English as an additional language. There are some implications of the changes to Ofsted's renewed framework in the way in which inspectors gather the evidence to evaluate how effectively pupils are securing these strong foundations. Ofsted's methodology will focus on learning walks rather than deep dives that focused on individual subjects. Early years and Key Stage 1 will be a focus given the importance of pupils receiving a high quality early education. If you want to find out more, please see gov.uk where you will find the toolkit, the inspection information document and operating guide. Ofsted are also partway through delivering a series of webinars for schools about the renewed framework, and you'll find the dates and times for these on gov.uk and they'll be available to watch via Ofsted's YouTube channel. So if you haven't seen those, do go and have a look. There are lots of common questions about the framework, so we're going to address lots of these now and hopefully it'll cover some of the questions that you have had about the framework. So the first one is, do I need to change my writing curriculum immediately? Schools don't need to change their writing curriculum immediately. The DfE does not expect schools to make changes overnight. Instead, like we've already mentioned, they recommend you use this academic year, so 25-26, to focus on becoming familiar with the framework guidance and use the audits to help you evaluate your current practice. It's important that schools develop a writing curriculum action plan that addresses the necessary changes across the whole school and prioritises them accordingly. Question 2. Will the publication of the writing framework affect moderation of my pupils' Key Stage 2 writing? There is no current change to the assessment framework for Key Stage 2. We've got the independent curriculum and assessment review that's looking into the curriculum and assessment systems and will release its final report with recommendations in the autumn, at which point the government will respond to any future proposals. In the meantime, it's important for teachers to remember that focusing too heavily on test preparation can limit skill and knowledge development, stifling creativity and writing development. Following the guidance will ensure best practice in teaching writing. So the writing framework does not replace the teacher assessment framework for writing at the end of Key Stage 2. You do still need to use that until any review tells us otherwise. So still use the teacher assessment framework for the end of year 6. FAQ 3, who is the writing framework for? Is this for early years teachers and is this document for secondary teachers? So this document provides non-statutory guidance for primary schools, reception to year 6, but it will be of interest to initial teacher training providers, early years providers, secondary teachers and teachers in specialist settings who want to know more about how pupils learn to write. It's based on teachers' experiences, classroom observations and research, as well as the contributions of experts. This guidance gives simple, practical advice about how to teach writing to pupils in the reception year, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2. It also provides guidance on helping pupils who need more support. Question 4. Should my school be using a writing programme? Schools are not expected to purchase a commercially produced writing programme. Developing an effective writing curriculum and seeing its impact takes time, so schools should spend time carefully evaluating their current provision to identify areas for improvement. If leaders conclude that a programme would be beneficial for certain aspects of the writing curriculum, schools should use the guidance provided in this framework to help them review programmes so they can be confident in their design. Some schools may have developed their own programme that they prefer. If they are successful with their own writing curriculum, there is no expectation that schools use a commercially produced programme. Question 5. Does the writing framework incorporate the findings of the Curriculum and Assessment Review? The short answer is no. The Curriculum and Assessment Review will publish its final report and its recommendations in the autumn when government will respond. The Curriculum and Assessment Review has emphasised the importance of mastery of foundation concepts in English. For writing, it's essential to teach pupils transcription skills, that's handwriting and spelling, from an early age to allow them to free up working memory for composition of their writing. It's also important to develop their understanding of how to build and extend sentences. Therefore, it may be sensible for schools to focus on securing high-quality teaching of transcription now, pending any further changes. After the final Curriculum and Assessment Review report is published and a revised national curriculum is drafted, the DFE will publish an updated version of this framework to align to the new programme of study. Should we prioritise writing or reading? The document emphasises that reading and writing should be considered together to support pupils' progress as effectively as possible, but that the writing curriculum should not come at the expense of the reading curriculum. While writing must be taught separately from reading, reading enhances pupils' writing skills. Ideally, the same person would lead the reading and writing curriculum. If school leaders decide to have separate leaders for reading and for writing, it is vital that they work collaboratively together with the Special Educational Needs Coordinator to ensure we're meeting the needs of all pupils. Given the DFE's commitment to a record 75% of children reaching a good level of development at the end of reception by 2028, we encourage schools to prioritise reception year, particularly early literacy skills such as writing. So that's your whistle-stop tour of the framework. We are providing further writing framework webinars that will delve deeper into different aspects of the framework. So the next one is around the leadership and management of writing, and that will be on the 13th of November. If you signed up for this webinar, we will automatically send you the link for it. But if you have got colleagues that haven't, we can sign them up on our website, but that ideally is for English Leads. Webinar 3 is about the importance of reception, and that will be on the 25th of November. And the audience for that again is English Leads, but also including early years teachers. Webinar 4 is about transcription. We've yet to have the dates confirmed by the DFE, but we know it will be in January at some point. And for that one, we're looking at English Leads, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 practitioners, particularly if you've got early writers in Key Stage 2. Webinar 5 is about composition. And again, not a fully confirmed date yet, but we know it will be February. And again, for English Leads, Key Stage 1 and Key Stage 2 teachers. And Webinar 6 is about supporting pupils who need the most support, and that will be coming to you in March. So the focus for that one is for English Leads, the SENCO, and any classroom teachers. So thank you for joining us this evening for this webinar. I hope you found it useful. We will send the recording to you. But I hope you have a good evening, and we'll hopefully see you at the next webinar on the 13th of November. Thank you, everybody.